Imagine, for just a moment, the immense psychological weight of keeping a murder scene completely frozen in time. Not for days, not for months, but for 26 long years. Welcome to this documentary explainer. Today, we're diving into a case that completely redefines the concepts of patience, grief, and forensic dedication. It's the story of one man's unimaginable resolve to solve a cold case using only the preserved remnants of a horrific crime. It's a real-life time capsule of tragedy, just waiting for science to finally catch up. Our story begins on November 13, 1999, in a second-floor apartment in Nagoya's Nishi ward. When the landlord pushed open the unlocked door, the scene inside was hauntingly domestic, yet utterly devastated. A television was still brightly playing a variety show. On the kitchen table, a bowl of miso soup sat cooling right beside a cup of soggy instant noodles. A toddler's lunch was half-eaten, and nearby, a 2-year-old boy sat on the floor completely unharmed. But tragically, his mother, 32-year-old housewife Namiko Takaba, lay dead in the living room. Namiko had been stabbed multiple times in the neck. And right here is where this tragedy really diverges from your typical investigation. When Namiko's husband, Satoru, was faced with a horrific aftermath, he made an immediate and shocking decision. He did not scrub the blood off the floor. You see, from very early on, after a forensic expert raised the possibility, Satoru suspected that the bloodstains near the entrance might not actually belong to his wife. He believed they belonged to the killer. So he chose to leave the nightmare exactly as it was. Part 1. The untouched crime scene. Let's step directly into the chaotic physical aftermath of the attack.
The apartment itself was a profound source of hyper-specific, deeply chilling clues. For instance, the attacker had left a bloody 24-centimeter shoe print and foreign bloodstains leading right out the door. But perhaps the most eerie piece of evidence of all was left sitting right there on the kitchen counter. It was a half-finished bottle of a lactic acid beverage. Now, this was a brand the Takaba family literally never purchased. In fact, it was only sold at stores 30 kilometers away. Just think about that. The killer had brought a drink, calmly drank from it, left it half-finished on a stranger's counter, and then committed murder?
Part 2. Clues in the blood. Now we'll transition to the massive, yet frustratingly stalled initial police manhunt and look at the precise forensic profile they managed to build from that untouched room. The Aichi Prefectural Police launched an absolutely staggering manhunt. Over the course of the initial investigation, 100,000 officers were deployed across the region. That's practically a small city of police officers. They conducted 5,000 individual interviews. Yet, despite this overwhelming allocation of resources, the trail just steadily went cold. From purely physical traces, authorities actually managed to build a staggeringly specific profile. They deduced the attacker was female, roughly 1.6 meters tall, wearing size 24-centimeter shoes, with type B blood. And this was all corroborated by eyewitness sightings of a woman fleeing the scene through the neighborhood, wrapping a bloody cloth around an injured hand. They knew exactly who they were looking for physically, down to her shoe size and blood type, but they still had no name. Part 3. Fighting the clock. As the years ticked by, a massive legal threat loomed ominously over the entire case: the statute of limitations. Under Japanese law back in 1999, investigators had exactly 15 years to solve a murder. By 2014, the killer would legally be allowed to walk free, rendering all that blood preserved on the floor completely meaningless. While refusing to accept this, Satoru helped form an advocacy group called Soranai, which translates roughly to heavenly meeting. They lobbied fiercely, arguing that DNA doesn't expire and neither should justice. And guess what? In 2010, largely because of families like Satoru's, Japan actually retroactively abolished the statute of limitations for murder. Satoru had successfully stopped the clock. Part 4. The 26-year time capsule. With the legal deadline erased, we arrive at the monumental personal and financial sacrifice Satoru made to keep the physical forensic evidence alive. Satoru and his son obviously had to move out of the apartment, but Satoru kept his name on the lease.
For a quarter of a century, month after month, he paid the rent on an empty, blood-stained flat. Ultimately, he spent roughly 22 million yen, which is about $145,000, entirely out of his own pocket.
Now, he didn't just do this as an act of mourning. It was a highly calculated, deliberate strategy. He believed, with an absolutely unwavering patience, that forensic technology would eventually advance enough to extract the killer's identity from decades-old biological material. He maintained the apartment as a sealed time capsule, so that when science was finally ready, the evidence would still be sitting right there, uncorrupted. Part 5, the DNA breakthrough. Now we move to 2024, when, after decades of waiting, the breakthrough finally arrived. The Aichi Prefectural Police decided to assign a new inspector to the case, and this fresh set of eyes brought a whole new strategy. Instead of casting a wide net, investigators compiled a list of people connected to Satoru's past who had previously declined to provide DNA. They managed to narrow this list down to roughly 500 specific names. Finally, in late 2025, they approached a 69-year-old woman who, this time around, voluntarily gave a sample. When the results came back, it was a perfect match to the type B blood preserved on that apartment floor since 1999. The woman's name was Kumiko Yasufuku. She was a former high school classmate of Satoru's. The 26-year wait was finally over. Yasufuku later presented herself at a police station and formally admitted to the killing. The geography of the aftermath reveals a deeply unsettling reality about those 26 years. Kumiko Yasufuku just lived a normal life. She got married, she had children, and she lived just 2 kilometers from where Satoru and his son had eventually relocated, and barely 10 kilometers from the blood-stained apartment she had fled. She later told police she lived in constant anxiety every single day, waiting every November for that inevitable knock on the door. Part 6, the unanswered question. We now transition to the immediate aftermath of this long-awaited arrest and the mysteries that still haunt the family. So Yasufuku has confessed and expressed remorse. A psychiatric evaluation has been ordered to assess her mental state at the time of the crime, and her trial is officially set for March 5th, 2026. However, she has provided absolutely no logical motive. She had never even met Namiko. While police suspect a high school reunion a year prior to the murder might have triggered something, Yasufuku has remained largely silent on her actual reasons for doing this. Satoru isn't just relying on the criminal trial, though. He has filed an unprecedented civil lawsuit against Yasufuku. As he's explained in interviews, he is absolutely not doing this for financial gain. He noticed a gap in the law regarding long-term civil liability, and he wants to set legal precedents so future victims' families have a clear path forward. Plus, he's using the civil suit to legally ensure the apartment remains preserved straight through the trial, allowing the physical evidence to directly counter any false narratives Yasufuku might try to spin in open court. Despite his fierce, methodical fight, Satoru's reaction to the arrest wasn't some huge roar of triumph. It was a heartbreaking, quiet admission. He told the press, "I really never thought the culprit would be arrested." He never truly believed his expensive, painful preservation would actually work, but he simply could not stop fighting for his wife. Satoru's dedication literally changed Japanese law and pushed forensic science to its absolute limits to catch a killer. But as this documentary explainer comes to a close, a heavy silence still remains. Why did a woman calmly drink a lactic acid beverage at a stranger's kitchen table before committing such a brutal act? Science and patience solved the who, but only Kumiko Yasufuku can answer the why.